Episode 40, guys. This Life in Tech. I'm Jason.
And I'm Dan.
We made it, dude. We made it to our
Yeah.
40s, and this fucking podcast has made it to its 40th. Hallelujah.
So I guess we got some good topics to talk about. What do you want to get into first?
Let's just get Chael P. Sonnen, the people's champ, out of the way.
The people's chump, the choke artist, can't win the big match.
Man, and this will actually be a good segue into I think what we'll talk about next. But man, the internet is awash today with the perception that was a fixed fight. I don't know if you've read anything about it.
I haven't really seen anything about it being a fixed fight. I mean, look, here's the way I look at it. Both of them are essentially out of their prime at this particular point. But I can't imagine, even though I am not a fan of Chael Sonnen. I think he is okay. He was probably a pretty good wrestler back in the day, but all he has done for me is he just basically, it's no different than GSP. It's not an exciting fight. He just gets you on the ground and just holds you there for 3 rounds. And if he can do that, he typically wins the fight. And that's what GSP has been doing since he lost to what's his name from New Jersey.
Matt Serra.
Yeah, Matt Serra. So
New Jersey.
Yeah. Hey, you knew exactly who I was talking about.
Yeah, but he's, just for the record, I'm pretty sure he's from Long Island, New York.
Oh, maybe he trains in New Jersey or something. I don't know.
Dude, those are fighting words.
Yeah, well, whatever. So I am not a fan of Chael Sonnen. Yeah, I think he'd probably be great for the WWE because he's got some mic skills, but so what? He chokes in the big fight.
Well, so I happen to find him quite entertaining. What I wanted to talk about is the perception that it was a fix. It seems to be based on the fact that the rear naked choke, Tito's arm wasn't under the chin, so there's no way he could choke him. Well, that's correct. That's why it wasn't a rear naked choke. That's what's called a neck crank or a jaw crush.
Yeah.
It's not a choke. I mean, them calling it a rear naked choke is because they don't know what else to call it. Right? The announcers
Sonnen's face was red. I mean, he was losing.
Well, you're getting your jaw crushed. I mean, it's painful. You tap to pain, not because you're passing out. It's not a choke.
Yeah.
Not the way he had it. But anyway, the other thing too is, and I've never liked Tito Ortiz. I've just, whatever, man. He's not my kind of person, at least the persona he sells. However, people sleep on his grappling skills. People forget that he arm triangled Lyoto Machida, who's no slouch. I mean, just because his predilection was for ground and pound all those years, and he was a legitimate champion. I mean, not certainly at the height of UFC, but whatever. But the guy's not without talent, and Chael's not either. But I mean, Chael's a journeyman, right? He shows up and fights people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what you can say about that. But
well,
I think it's funny how people default to it's a fix.
I don't really buy into that because these people have egos, and I just can't imagine Chael fixing any fight. I mean, I would say he's still a top-notch MMA fighter. He's going to give you a fight. He's just not a champion. He's like the Buffalo Bills in the 90s. He's good enough to make it to the dance, but can't win it in the end. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but here's what I'll say. Even though I don't like him as a fighter, he at least calls it is. He said, "Hey, yeah, I did, these particular performance-enhancing drugs because, well, doctor told me I should do it in order to do the following things because my wife and I are trying to have a baby. And then, oh, by the way, in case anyone didn't know, his wife was misdiagnosed with a bacterial infection during her pregnancy, and the daughter that he wound up having only lived like a week. So, for that, I mean, hats off to the guy for deciding to get back into it. I don't know how I would feel if one of my children died like that. I mean, I don't know. So I give my hats off to the guy for at least being having integrity to say, hey, yeah, I did this because my personal life and what my doctor told me to do was more important than bringing in this check from MMA. And hey, not every performance enhancing drug, so to speak, is in the same ballpark as saying I'm going to go and do a type of anabolic steroid or something along those lines. I mean,
Well,
there's a difference between healing versus I'm trying to build muscle mass.
Well, peds are peds, man. I mean, there's no way around it. And I've gone on the record, and I'll go on the record again saying I don't see a problem with it. I mean, just normalize it, and then you're able to control it and regulate it, rather than acting like it doesn't happen. That's tomfoolery. And we've seen how that We've seen how that worked with the war on drugs since the '80s. It doesn't work very well. It doesn't work very well because you can't legislate behavior. That's the problem. But nonetheless, in addition to the fixes in bullshit, there's another segue to our next topic, and that's people's inability to separate the persona that's presented, like Chael presents, or even the newer, better version, I think inarguably, is Conor McGregor.
Hey, that's not what you said on Twitter.
No. I was talking about the fighter. I wasn't talking about the persona they use to sell fights. Different things. And a lot of people can't differentiate between them as a human being and the character, if you will, that they're playing when they're trying to do what it is, which is sell fights. I mean, that's how they make money, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's probably a good segue that people can't differentiate between people signing a piece of paper saying this is good and them having actually looked at it in all its possible incarnations and implementations.
Sure.
Versus there being a potential problem. And my friends, if you're not sure what we're talking about WhatsApp again.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of very disingenuous things going on here. One, you have a grad student out of what was it, Berkeley, UC Berkeley? It was some university in California, I remember that.
Yeah.
People going, oh, he's just an overzealous grad student trying to find a problem in something. I believe what he's found still brings in the potential possibilities that something bad could happen. Let's not confuse that the axolotl protocol that's used in open whisper systems is a very sound protocol and has been reviewed by many cryptographers say it's great. That's the math behind it. That does not state the implementation of that in software code is of the same quality. And so all of these security experts, will say cryptography experts, that have said, hey, WhatsApp, and there's no problem with it. I have not seen anyone ask, nor has it been disclosed that WhatsApp/Facebook has provided the implementation code for the axolotl protocol and WhatsApp to have reviewed that to say it is sound. And until that happens, I would not advise people to use WhatsApp for secure communications. If you want to use it for whatever reason that you like it, no problem. But if you're thinking that it's secure communications, until someone has validated the code, like if Bruce Schneier said, Facebook has given me the code, I have reviewed it, and it's sound, I believe it. Signing a piece of paper and saying the axolotl protocol is sound is not the same as its implementation.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we know firsthand that there's several areas where you could have an issue, right? I mean, not only in the software implementation of the algorithm of the protocol itself, but in the, let's call it the housing of the algorithm, right? The handling of inputs and outputs and all the other functionality. There's numerous places to introduce flaws that could potentially, not necessarily impinge upon the algorithm or the protocol, which they could, but just, corrupt output, so to speak, or open it up in a way where you weren't planning on having that output viewable. But the other thing too, man, is right after we talked about this, it got kind of hot and trendy on Twitter, and then immediately some people I saw, so-called experts, were decrying individuals for telling people pretty much exactly what you just said, which is, just beware. Not they suck, not it's definitely flawed. I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at it personally. I have no idea. I've looked at Axolotl itself as we had experience with it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I haven't looked at what apps. I mean, it's not my app. They haven't asked me to. What do I care? I don't use it, so I don't know. But I think it warrants, hey, man, I mean, maybe I should be cognizant of what I'm sending. And I think that actually raises a second point. Why is this so fucking hard to get right? I mean,
well, before we get into that, I want to bring everyone. I don't say everyone. The articles that I've read also are claiming that stating that there may be a problem in WhatsApp is stating the same thing that vaccines kill people. And I think that's a horrible analogy. So first, let's understand medicine is when they test it, it's meant for the general population. You're always going to have those that react horribly to it. That's not software. Software is either it works or it doesn't work. There is no, because you happen to be a 22-year-old female, that you may wind up having a problem or something along those lines. No, encryption works or it doesn't work. And so stating that it's like a vaccine, bad analogy. I think that's it's a horrible way of doing it. Until someone publishes the code for how WhatsApp has implemented it, I say it's suspect. And here's the thing, that I'll say on top of that, because there's many people out there that really love Phil Zimmermann. And the one thing that Phil Zimmermann has always stated when it came to any encryption code is to publish it. Publish your implementation, because those, you just copyright it. Because those countries that would steal it, we're not looking to try to do business with them anyway. And in the United States and other countries that associate with the United States in terms of this way, won't allow you to implement copyrighted code. So Facebook, you don't want this particular controversy? Publish your WhatsApp code for the encryption and how it was implemented. And then all of this goes away.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing, man. It's an interesting thing. Why is it so hard to get right? That's what I don't understand. It always seems like there's some kind of tomfoolery that leads to, man, it's almost a psychological flaw. I don't think it's a technical flaw. I think the technology is actually easy to get right, and it's plentiful. I mean, there's tons of options. There's all kinds of different things you can implement without rewriting things from scratch yourself. I mean, there's no need to design your own protocol. Yeah. But the implementation, we know for a fact, fails very often. And to me, it's almost like a psychological problem.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to this. Cryptography is a way of trying to keep things secret that you only want to share between whatever parties you designate. That's the easy part. What becomes difficult is when you want exceptions to that. Hey, I want to know what's going on because WhatsApp is relatively free. I mean, what is it, like $2 a year or something like that now? It's like the first year is free, and then they charge you like, I don't know how much, $2, I don't remember. But that's relatively inexpensive. So the reason for that is because we're still the product. Facebook wants to make money off of this, and they want to know what's going on. And so the moment you start adding exceptions, every exception weakens the way in which you want to keep something secret. So enterprises, all that, they need features, they want functionality. All those, the usability aspect to have more bells and whistles weakens the encryption. If you just want to encrypt, no problem. You want features? I think we start weakening the overall integrity of the algorithm at that point.
What if we just stop encrypting? In fact, what if encrypting is bad for us?
Well, you keep bringing this up, and we almost completely disagree on this one, because your stance is always if everyone has equal access to the data, then because data is what's the value point, then it's no different than if we just allow all drugs to be legalized, then it removes the value to it, because there's in a utopian world, I would say you'd be correct. But in society where people get involved and they want to make more money than what you make, then they take advantage of it. So we have this need to want to keep something secret.
We're all training for utopia, bro. And how do we train for utopia? Compliance. Do you want to talk about compliance real quick? It seems to be like you're a pain in the ass right now.
I hate compliance. Let me tell you why. So I'm arguing with these fools on PCI. All right. What is segmentation? All right. I'll get into this argument. Segmentation. So I asked the question. They say anything that filters based on IP address, source, destination, port, and protocol. Okay, great. The built-in Windows firewall for a server then is segmentation.
Sure.
I can filter, regardless of we're in the same network. I can filter that. Oh no, the PCI Council doesn't feel that's enough. I don't care what their feelings are. Show me something that states that's not permitted. I'm not saying to put a Windows server right outside, basically only protection is Windows firewall on the internet. That's not what I'm saying at all. It just happens to be that you want to talk about how compliance equals security. That Windows firewall is a countermeasure. Then they will say, well, there's been many studies that state that it's easily susceptible. I love this word, many studies, like many experts, many this. This is a Donald Trump saying. Many people have told me this is bad. Who are these people?
Well, how many is many? I mean,
well, right. And then in the same breath, you want to talk about, I think the PCI Council says like 6-character password is still acceptable.
Right. Right.
So, hey, that's compliance isn't security, folks. Let's be very, very clear. It's not security. It's not even a false sense of security. It's a bunch of people who don't understand security in any way, shape, or form saying, oh, I think this sounds like a good idea.
Right. I mean, if security is blood pressure, compliance is the instrument that measures it every once in a while.
Yeah. Sure.
And the way in which it measures more so is completely biased. I mean, PCI is biased towards cardholder data. It doesn't tell you anything else about business risk, or even business IT controls. For that, you need something like COBIT with, if you're a public company, SOX 404. But that doesn't handle anything about cardholder data. So no. I mean, they're very narrow in scope, and more so, you know, if you're going to take the stance that a logical segmentation is fine versus a physical segmentation, then how do you also get to argue about what constitutes a logical segmentation? I mean, a firewall is a firewall. What does it matter what it runs on?
Exactly, and this is just the parts that, you know, one of the guys got on and said, well, there's no best practice that said to use Windows Firewall. I said, oh, you mean so like the Department of Defense Security Technical Implementation Guide? I think they're pretty concerned about that, and you have to use them. It prevents lateral movement within inside a VLAN. I mean, it's again tomfoolery. It's people that don't truly understand security. I mean, in one of them, they come back and tell me that in terms of another audit, hey, we were able to get communication out through the firewall. Here's the Wireshark dump that proves it. All of them are reset packets.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, there's no SYN-ACK. But if you immediately get a reset packet, that means port is closed.
Right. I mean, right.
but hey, these were pen testers that did this. They wrote a report saying we were able to get out through the firewall. It's reset packets, which goes back to one of our other segment or shows. Pen testers are like entry level today.
Well,
if you're a pen tester, it's an entry level job until you get to real corporate America.
See, and here's one of the fundamental problems when you get average to below average auditors for any compliance framework, in my experience. And I did SOX for many years. I did PCI for many years with internal and external. I've seen it. When you get average to below average, they're incentivized, and really the size of their world based on their knowledge and capacity is this individual thing that I'm looking at is wrong because it doesn't match a pattern that's predefined for me. And because I'm not able to perceive the whole, I'm going to mark this as a deficiency, when in fact it's not. So yes, in that case, maybe you did get a series of packets through something, but what are those packets? I mean, so just like Windows Firewall, if I can't use Windows Firewall, then can I not use Windows? I mean, so what's the problem? Is the problem the way the firewall works? Because then we have to argue about the type of firewall it is. If it's the fact that it's Windows, then why am I allowed to have Windows at all?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to tell me that I can't have Windows, because that's just ludicrous, right?
Sure. And we're not talking about the wrapper either.
No. I had a dude tell me one time, man, in a level 1 PCI audit. This was in a restaurant environment. and we were looking at the point of sale local area network specifically in those systems, those terminals. And he created this whole scenario in his head whereby he would be able to download source code to a point of sale terminal and somehow get it to execute and steal cardholder data. Now, first of all, that whole environment's air gapped, right? I mean, it's physically air gapped. It's not logically air gapped. It's physically air gapped from anything else. All right. Communication's one way, and it ain't the way he thinks it is. Furthermore, those terminals are really low power. I mean, they're embedded systems, right? Second of all, they don't have compilers on them. So how the fuck are you going to get code?
Well, not just
down
that.
a link. Go ahead.
So the amount of code that you're downloading is probably the amount of code that's there is more than the little flash that they have on those terminals, right? Which is the part this is the part where people start talking about, like with jailbreaking an iPhone. Dude, you've got to get your payload in some minuscule amount of disk space because there's not much there.
Right. Right. Right.
You got to bring, you said, and you got to bring your own compiler.
Yeah. I mean, how are you getting a compiler down there, man? I mean, and remember, it's unidirectional deliberately.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
Anyway,
send data only.
so historically, the way I dealt with shit like this was I would allow little deficiencies to bubble up, little meaningless things that took like 5 minutes to fix, right? Just to give these people something to find. It substantiates their job. There's a report and a remediation plan, so you fill out all those documents, and it keeps Visa happy if it's PCI.
Yeah.
It kept one of the big four happy when it was SOX. Okay, yeah, I'll change that sentence. Okay.
Gotcha.
And see you. Talk to you in 8 months.
Yeah. It's just basically a game. I mean, and this is why technology doesn't advance as quickly, is because we have to have all these people that are auditors.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we need someone to come in and check the work, but audit for the sake of audit, compliance for the sake of compliance does not mean something is secure. I mean, I argue with people over this constantly. Like, I love people who come out and say, hey, you need your intrusion detection system to be monitoring the external interface on your firewall. What? Why? I only care about what makes it through the firewall. I don't care all I'm going to see is noise.
Yeah.
But that's what all these managed services that do intrusion detection, that's where they want to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Shows pretty graphs. The reports look good.
Well, and it generates an enormous amount of data. Yeah, and it generates an enormous amount of data that you have to pay for the storage of.
Yeah. I'm like, get the hell out. I don't care about that. That's what the firewall is supposed to do.
Well, and in particular with PCI, let's be clear about a couple of things here. In particular with PCI, that is a game of liability. And it's who holds the bag should a merchant get breached. And Visa says it ain't us. And the merchant says it's not me, fuck you. Who's left? The bank, the acquirers. Yep. And listen, at least when we negotiated our cold hardware agreements as a merchant, doesn't matter what happened, we're not liable. We ain't paying shit.
Right.
And so another point too is, let's remember what got us into this situation, which is the card brands, Visa, MasterCard, so forth and so on, requiring merchants to produce this data specifically to fight chargebacks.
Right. Sure.
That's exactly what led to holding on to this data. Well, wait a minute. So you cause the problem, and then you magically come up with a solution to it, which really is just a way to shift blame. Mm-hmm. And listen, man, I'm not saying implementing the 12 control framework guidelines. I mean, at least I know there's several hundred individual controls. I'm talking about the sections, right? 13 sections, 14 sections now, depending on how you look at policies and procedures. I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, if you're not doing some of that stuff, you're probably in very bad shape. So it's a good idea to do it. And this is one of the things I always liked about SOX. It was always what's reasonable for you, right? Sure. Just do what you say you're doing and have those controls implemented, and you're going to pass. You're going to be fine. PCI can be really unrealistic if you get the wrong assessor in there.
Oh yeah, and I won't say that 3.2, the new standard, is bad. There's a lot of good things that they put in place there,
Mhm.
but some of the other things are just quite silly. I mean, unless you're going to define something specifically and you leave it up for interpretation, now it's me and the assessor. We can
Mhm.
completely disagree on something, and PCI is a pass or fail. So if they don't like the way we've done something, they're like, oh, it's fail. It doesn't, there's multiple ways, as they say, to skin the cat.
Well,
So,
and one of the things people forget about, really don't talk about with PCI is, at least with something like SOX, it kind of follows the spirit of its intention in the sense that you have an internal that preps you, and you have an external that actually processes it and submits your paperwork to the SEC. Well, I mean, you submit it, but you know what I mean, right? They're the ones checking it. With PCI, it's the same person, and you're paying them. So,
right.
I mean, we saw what happened with that. We've seen
Yeah,
what happens with
sure.
that. That's just human nature. I mean, if you're paying me and I feel a selective pressure to do something I might not normally do so that I get paid,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd like to think most people would uphold. You know what I mean? But let's be honest.
It doesn't always happen that way.
I'm
That's just
sure it
really what it
doesn't.
comes
I'm
down
sure it doesn't. But the other side of that too is it's not always malicious in the sense that if I work for you doing the assessment, I'm going to let whatever go. It's not just that. It's also the opposite. Sometimes I've seen people as an assessor fight so hard to avoid that perception that they're just completely unreasonable. They're
to.
completely unreasonable.
It happens.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got an ego. They don't want to be proven wrong.
Yeah. Especially in our field.
Yeah.
I had a junior dude come in one time, man,
Hmm.
and told me that I had to roll a change out to like 10,000 locations. Listen, man, it was a couple $100 change. And he's like, it's just a couple $100. I'm like, times like 10,000, you fucking idiot. No,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't do anything, man. It's not something that's substantial or material. The answer is no, it's not happening.
Right. And it's, this is why I only argue about things that really matter.
Yep.
Right. I will bring up a point, as you just mentioned a little bit ago, that I'm okay with losing. Like, oh yeah, you're probably right. We'll take care of that.
Mhm.
That way, it makes them feel like they've got to win, and then I'm going to really argue on the things that I'm like, look, this is going to be a nightmare if I don't do this. And so I argue heavily on those things because that's what it's going to be the biggest pain. You know, the and I tend to have issues with people who just accept whatever audit compliance people come in, argue it down.
Mhm.
Our goal internally is to argue the severity level down to where it's manageable.
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't mean we don't go and fix it. It's the idea that we don't want to show 100 different critical items on there because it's subjective. Like if I want to use Windows Firewall, which in my opinion, every server that is on any network should also be using its localized software-based firewall. This prevents lateral movement. So let's do that. But there's plenty of places that just don't.
No,
And
no, no, no.
I'm
Well,
not saying it's the only thing to do, but it is one of the steps to do.
right, right. And then you can have a fair sound argument about, does that produce a logical segmentation? And the simple fact of the matter is, if you're going to agree that, let's say, a Cisco router with an IP filter enabled creates a segmentation, then why doesn't a host-based firewall? Because it's functionally the exact same thing. That
Mm-hmm.
stack operates identically.
Yeah.
So either
So,
they're both wrong or they're both right. Like you were saying earlier, this is the beauty of technology. It exists in a binary state. It's
mm-hmm.
on or it's off. It works or it doesn't. And yes, man, every time somebody tries to create an analogy with human biology, I just want to smack the shit out of them. We
Yeah.
don't think like computers. Our
Oh,
brains aren't built like computers.
by the way, I love it when people say our security system functions like the immune system.
Oh, dude, I just want to piss down their throat.
Hey, for all those people that say that, the human immune system are attackers. They're not defenders. It sees something that's not there, and it immediately goes to eradicate it.
Yeah.
Without any
Yeah.
prejudice. It's eradication without prejudice.
Yeah, and
So-
you know what that produces sometimes? Immunodeficiency syndromes.
Yeah. So the immune system is not it's not defensive, it's offensive in nature.
Oh, man. There's actually a lot of literature where people have tried to mimic mammalian immune systems with intrusion detection. And dude, every time I see one of these papers come up in one of my alerts for scholarly research, I just want to write people emails. No.
Yeah.
It's not even close, man. It's an inappropriate analogy. It doesn't work that way, nor can it ever. Wait, here's a shock to all the people that think computers work like we do. No, you think that because you're a human and not a machine. That's why you think that, you fool. God, man, that rubs me the wrong way.
The closest thing that I have seen is in the Wi-Fi arena with their built-in intrusion detection. When it sees an unauthorized access point, it DDoSes it to the point where it can't work.
Sure.
That's the only thing that I've seen that's close. But that's also based on an algorithm, and it's going to do that every single time. There's no like antibodies that are built up after the fight. They go, oh, well, I know what this looks like, and it's never going to be there again.
Right. There's no antigen. There's no antigen. There's no proteins with binding sites.
Yeah.
God damn it, dude. God damn it, man. It's getting fired up. It's like Deepak Chopra. It is, man. It's just like people that read a couple pages of Stephen Hawking or Brian Greene and think they're quantum mechanics experts, and then they try to extrapolate that to a macro world. You fucking idiots. Oh God.
And many of you already know that I love to play the troll. So it was last year at RSA conference. I just wanted to get Jason's blood boiling. So there was this one vendor that had a big sign that was like, "We are the human version of the immune system and technology." So I snapped that picture. I was like, "Dude, these people disagree with you." So
dude, you know that gets me going.
Get Jason's blood boiling. Every technology you find, it's at the real Jay Pittman. On Twitter, just go ahead and tweet us some of those pictures. He will love it.
It's just a display of ignorance, man. See, you're getting me going. It's just a display of ignorance. It's like the people that say, evolution's not real because we didn't come from monkeys. Show me the monkey. No, you dummy. That's not what it says. We didn't come from monkeys, fool. We co-developed, man, from a common ancestor. Jesus Christ.
Oh, this is great. Well, this has been a pretty good episode 40.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, the only thing we could probably end with, if you got a minute, is Trump, and not Trump specifically, but he's president now. He made it. What does that mean for tech over the next 4 years? I mean, unless he gets impeached, which I don't know that's going to happen given the makeup of Congress.
Not in the next 2 years.
At least 2 years, right?
So this is what I think. I think Trump doesn't really quite understand crypto. So he would probably maybe try to make a public display, but hopefully he'll listen to his
Giuliani.
NSA. No, definitely not Giuliani. That guy. But I believe at least we're already seeing evidence of him trying to get manufacturing jobs back here in the States. So, not a bad thing. I don't know if it's going to be specific for computer-based technology. So I want to separate that. I think, though, we may have a realistic shot to start doing some real medical type technology where stem cell research here in the United States might see a big boom.
Yeah.
Because he's, I think, much more from I think he's much more in favor of it than previous administrations.
Well, I mean, if he is pro-business and pro-money, I mean, if you want to bring manufacturing back, what are you manufacturing? At some point, you're going to have to manufacture something new to keep up with the pace of society, which requires research and development, which requires science.
I need to find this one thing just because we're talking about it real quick because I don't want to talk out of school.
Sure. While you're looking that up, real quick, I think it could be a big boon to our industry too, man.
It's possible.
Well, I think, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I actually mean it in a good way, at least for us in terms of businessmen and entrepreneurs. We could be seeing a resurgence of 80s type activity, focus on business and entrepreneurship and growth and new ideas, right? Which
Right.
led to a tech boom in the 90s. I mean, even if the guy completely, in fact, if he ignores cybersecurity, that's even better for us as entrepreneurs. Plenty of
Right.
problems to
I
solve,
can't
right?
find it real quick. But anyway, I think that, I think Donald Trump and his presidency is going to try, because he understands this from a business aspect. If you do not help the lowest people in the states, then you don't have an opportunity to make a lot more wealth. You have to bring the lowest class up. It's not
Hmm.
about, this is the part that I get with, it's even with people. You have all these people that are, they want to take the people that are at the top and then they want to bring them down to this level. And what that does is it brings everything down. The idea is to take those that are here and figure out a way to raise them up.
Right.
So I think he's going to start, I think he'll invest a lot more in education. No different. I think he's, because look, to me, he's really much more of a Democrat. He only changed a Republican not too long ago, but I believe his views on education were very similar to Bill Clinton's there in the 90s. And I think he's going to take a lot of those policies to make an increase in education, because that takes the lowest level people and it starts to bring them up. Are they going to get to the top 20%? Not in this generation. This is the other part to remember. Any single president right now is really only going to have an opportunity to change maybe 5% in
Right.
terms of what our day-to-day lives are. 5%. It could be good or it could be bad. So all the people that are up in arms about it, and I've been in Washington for many, many, many years, and nothing really changes. So what could we do? Make investments into the lowest class that give them an opportunity to be able to make more, which will then also increase taxes. Increasing the taxes on the wealthiest people, they have enough money, they can move it out of the states and find ways to not pay money on that.
Right.
So don't go that route. Find a
Well,
way to get the lower class people to be able to make more. They'll spend more, and therefore we generate more tax revenue.
yeah, and in fact, and I'll end with this. It's an incredibly short-sighted, um, deeply flawed argument to say that I'm going to make myself and those around me better by making this other group have less. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what SJWs do, right? We want equality by making you unequal, and you can't do that.
Like Shadow DXS, which is
Yeah.
now just Brandon E. Pike, because his Shadow DXS account got banned or something like that.
Well, I like how his screen alias is Schadenfreude. Like, I don't
Yeah,
even think that fucker knows what that means.
probably not.
I don't think he understands the German roots of it. But anyway, yeah, you can't, man. That's not a sustainable change. It's not a sustainable change.
I think he would understand what Scheiden Donut means.
Hey, this guy said it, man. He gives me all the grief and he tries to abuse me, but you're the one that harasses the guy. I'm only ever nice. I want to hug him, man. I pray for him.
What do you pray to? You don't believe in any God. What do you pray to?
Just for positive energy, man. I want
Yeah.
the universe to cocoon him and joy and warmth.
Yeah. So we haven't done this in a little while, and I think one of the topics we should talk about next week are getting back more into nootropics and like CBD oil.
Oh yeah, that's a good one, man. That's a
Yeah.
good debate.
Because there's some controversy going on about a little bit about it right now, especially with with the DEA just arbitrarily making changes. But
Yeah, well, and more to the point, man, and it's actually a security issue. And when you really break it down, is you have an agency that's A, responsible for creating the schedule, and then B, enforcing it.
right, and the other part is, we started talking about the separation of duties. Shouldn't the FDA be the ones really weighing in on it?
Right. Well, I mean, I think the DEA should be forced, and I'll make this argument. I think the DEA should be forced to decide which side of the fence is it on. Are you a regulatory body like the FDA, so that's your job, or are you executive branch and you're law enforcement? Because you can't be both. That's very, very bad.
Yep, got it. So that'll be for next week, folks.
Yep. All right.
For episode 40.
We made it, man. 4-0. We did it, guys. See you guys next week. I'm Jason.
And I'm Dan. Deuces.
Peace out. Stay warm.